I put out a full setup guide for the Watch 9, and a viewer pointed out I'd left something out. He was right. So I went back through the whole watch, found everything else I'd skipped, and put it in one place. This is part 2, and honestly, it's the more useful half. HIDENAPP, and this is the one that started all of it. Your Watch 9 can record an FDA-cleared ECG, it can estimate your blood pressure, it can watch your heart rhythm in the background and warn you about signs of atrial fibrillation. None of those 3 live in Samsung Health, the app you already have. They live in a completely separate app called Samsung Health Monitor, and it does not come installed. That's the piece I skipped last time, and it's the reason most Watch 9 owners never touch 3 of the most capable things their watch does. If part 2 is useful to you, subscribing takes a second and helps this kind of follow-up video reach the people who need it. One more thing before we work through this, because there's a loose end I want to close properly. Somewhere in my last video, I told you something that wasn't quite right, and I'm gonna correct it at the end rather than bury it. Keep that in the back of your mind. So let's install this thing properly. You need the app on both your phone and your watch, and there are a few requirements worth checking before you start. It works on Galaxy Watch 4 and newer, so your Watch 9 is covered. You need a Samsung Galaxy phone, which catches some people out, because a Watch 9 pairs happily with any Android phone, but this particular app is Samsung only. Your watch needs to be paired over Bluetooth and running the latest software, so open the Galaxy Wearable app and let it update before you go any further. Then install Samsung Health Monitor on the phone, and the watch side either installs alongside it or you grab it from the store on the watch. Once it's on the watch, open it and follow the setup prompts, because it wants to build a profile before it will measure anything. It's worth pausing on why Samsung splits these features into a separate app at all, because it explains a lot about how they behave. Blood pressure, ECG, and rhythm monitoring are regulated as medical tools, which means each one has to be cleared by health authorities country by country. Bundling them into the main Samsung Health app would mean the whole app carries that regulatory weight everywhere it ships. Keeping them in their own app lets Samsung switch them on in the markets where they've been approved and leave them off where they haven't. That's also why the app can look slightly different depending on where you bought your watch, and why a feature your friend has might be missing from yours. Now, a fair warning about availability, and this one matters. These features are regulated medical tools, so what you get depends on where you are. In the United States, blood pressure went live at the end of March, and ECG and irregular rhythm notifications have been cleared for a while. In other countries, the picture is different, and some regions still don't have blood pressure at all. If a feature doesn't appear for you after setup, that's usually the reason rather than a broken install. Do the phone side first and let it finish before you touch the watch, because installing them out of order is a common way to end up with the app on one device and not the other, staring at a setup screen that never completes. Take 5 minutes with this before you go on, because everything in the next 2 sections depends on this app being in place. And that starts with the one the viewer asked about, the feature with a hidden expiry date almost nobody warns you about, blood pressure. And the first thing to understand is what your watch is actually doing. It isn't squeezing your arm. It's using the optical sensor on the back, the same one reading your pulse, and analyzing the shape of your pulse wave to estimate systolic and diastolic pressure. That estimate only works if the watch has been taught what your real numbers look like, which is why calibration exists and why you cannot skip it. If you're wondering whether it's worth the effort at all, consider that a cuff on your bedside table gets used for about 2 weeks after you buy it, while a watch you're already wearing asks nothing of you beyond sitting still for a minute. To calibrate, you need an upper arm blood pressure cuff, the normal kind from a pharmacy. It isn't included with the watch, and it's the only thing you'll spend money on in this entire video. If you don't own one, get an upper arm model rather than a wrist model, because wrist cuffs are less consistent and you're using this reading as the reference for everything the watch does afterward. The cuff also stays useful long after calibration, since checking the watch against it every few weeks is the only way to know whether your estimates are still tracking reality. Now the preparation, and I'm gonna give you the full list because Samsung is specific about it, and skipping steps here is exactly why people end up with readings that look wrong. For 30 minutes before you calibrate, no alcohol, no caffeine, no smoking, no exercise, no bathing. Make sure your arm and wrist are dry with no lotion and no sweat. Do it indoors somewhere quiet. Put a comfortable chair next to a table. Sit with your back supported, legs uncrossed, feet flat on the floor. Rest your hands and forearms on the table. Then sit like that for at least 5 minutes before you start. When the measurement runs, stay still, don't move that arm, don't talk, and breathe normally without deliberately slowing or deepening your breath. The calibration itself is 3 measurements, all within a 30-minute window. You put the cuff on your upper arm, wear the watch snugly on that same wrist, take a reading with the cuff, and enter the numbers into the app when it asks. Repeat that 3 times. The watch uses those 3 points to line up its sensor data with your real-world pressure. It sounds fussy written out, but it's about 10 minutes of sitting still. After that, measuring is simple. Open Samsung Health Monitor on the watch, keep your arm at heart level, tap measure, and sit quietly without talking until it finishes. Here's the part that ties back to the title of this section, and it's the single most useful thing I can tell you today. That calibration expires after 28 days. Not the readings, the calibration itself. After 28 days, your watch stops giving you blood pressure numbers until you sit down with the cuff and do it again. Nobody flags that clearly during setup, so what happens is people calibrate once, take a few readings, forget about it for a month, come back and find the feature dead and conclude the watch is broken. It isn't. It's asking for a recalibration, and you can also recalibrate anytime before the 28 days are up if you want. Put a repeating reminder in your phone right now once every 4 weeks. That one reminder is the difference between a feature you use for years and one you abandon in week 5. There's one more habit worth building, and it costs nothing. Take your readings at roughly the same time of day, ideally morning, before coffee, and before you've been moving around much. Blood pressure naturally swings through the day. It's usually lower after sleep and higher in the late afternoon. So a morning reading compared to a morning reading tells you something, while a random Tuesday evening compared to a Saturday morning tells you almost nothing. The value in a wrist device isn't a single number, it's dozens of comparable numbers stacked up over months, and comparability only exists if you're consistent about when you measure. A few honest limits before we move on. This is not a medical device and it does not replace a cuff or a doctor. It isn't intended for anyone under 22. Or for people with known arrhythmias other than atrial fibrillation. Treat it as a way to watch your own trend over weeks, not as a diagnosis. And if a reading ever comes back looking alarming, take it again properly rather than panicking at it, then check it against your cuff, because a single odd number from an optical sensor is far more likely to be a technique problem than a medical one. None of this replaces a proper checkup, and if something feels wrong in your chest, a wrist reading is not the thing to rely on. A doctor is. Now, the same app holds a feature that works on a completely different principle, using electricity instead of light, and its setup is stricter than most people expect. ECG setup, and this one is genuinely different from everything else on the watch. Every other health feature here reads you optically, shining light into your skin and interpreting what bounces back. The ECG measures actual electrical activity from your heart, similar to a single lead reading in a clinic, which is why it needs you to complete a circuit with your finger rather than just sitting on your wrist. In the app, you'll find setup for both the ECG and something called irregular heart rhythm notification, and I'd switch both on while you're in there. Recording an ECG takes 30 seconds, but the technique matters more than people expect, so here's how to get a clean reading. Make sure your hand, your wrist, and the back of the watch are clean, because skin contact is doing all the work. Wear the watch slightly away from your wrist bone, a little further toward your elbow than usual, and snug rather than loose. Rest both forearms flat on a table. Then place a fingertip from your opposite hand on the home button, covering it completely, and hold it there. Don't move your arms and don't speak while it's recording. When it finishes, the result appears on the watch and you can swipe through it. And there's an option to tag any symptoms you were feeling at the time, which turns a chart into something a doctor can actually work with. Worth adding that you can share these recordings as a file from your phone, which makes an appointment far more productive than trying to describe a fluttering you felt on a Tuesday. Then there's the background feature, and this is the one I'd argue is the most valuable thing in this entire video. Irregular heart rhythm notification runs quietly while you're wearing the watch, periodically checking your pulse pattern, and if it spots a rhythm suggestive of atrial fibrillation, it tells you to record an ECG. You don't do anything, you don't check anything, it just watches. Atrial fibrillation is common, it raises stroke risk considerably, and plenty of people who have it feel completely fine and have no idea. A wrist device that quietly flags it is a real thing, not a marketing feature. The one condition is that it only monitors while the watch is actually on your wrist, so a watch that lives on the nightstand half the day is a watch that isn't watching. Have you ever taken your watch off for a whole evening and forgotten to put it back on? That's the gap this feature can't cover, and it's worth knowing. Something worth understanding about what an ECG actually catches, because expectations matter here. A 30-second recording captures whatever your heart is doing in those 30 seconds and nothing else. Atrial fibrillation often comes and goes, so someone can record a perfectly normal ECG in the morning and be in an irregular rhythm by dinner. That's exactly why the background monitoring matters so much more than the on-demand recording. It's checking repeatedly across the whole day and night, rather than in one 30-second window you happen to choose. Use the manual ECG when you feel something unusual, and let the background feature handle everything you don't feel. Same age rule applies here as with blood pressure, 22 and over, and not intended for people with known arrhythmias other than atrial fibrillation. And once that's running, we can leave this app entirely, because the next set of things I skipped are sitting in Samsung Health, where you'd never think to look for them. Body metrics, and we're back in regular Samsung Health now. Start with body composition, because your Watch 9 estimates body fat, muscle mass, body water, and more using bioelectrical impedance. It sends a tiny current through your body and measures resistance, and different tissue resists differently, which is how it separates fat from muscle. To take a reading, you place 2 fingers on the buttons. Hold your arms away from your body without letting them touch your sides, and stay still for a few seconds. Consistency is everything with this one. Measure at the same time of day, ideally in the morning before eating or drinking much, because hydration shifts the numbers considerably. Compare a morning reading to an evening reading after a big meal and you'll think something broke. The absolute number matters far less than the direction it moves over a month. Muscle and fat move slowly, so checking daily just produces noise and frustration, whereas a look once a week over 3 months actually shows you something real. Next, energy score. This is your daily readiness rating, and it pulls from your recent activity, your sleep, and your overnight heart signals to tell you each morning whether to push hard or take it easy. It's one of the more genuinely useful numbers on the watch, and it needs a stretch of consistent wear before it means anything, because it's comparing you to your own baseline rather than to a population average. Then there's the antioxidant index, which is measured through the sensor on the back and relates to carotenoid levels in your skin, essentially reflecting how much fruit and vegetables are making it into your diet. You take it with your thumb on the sensor. Treat it as a slow-moving lifestyle indicator, not something to check daily. Also worth knowing, several of these need Samsung Health to be reasonably current on your phone, so if a metric is missing entirely, update the app before you go hunting through settings. While we're in Samsung Health, take a minute on your goals as well, because the defaults are generic, and generic goals get ignored. Set your daily activity target to something you'd actually hit on an average day rather than an ambitious one, because a target you miss every evening stops meaning anything within a fortnight. You can raise it later once hitting it feels routine. The same applies to sleep targets. Set a bedtime you'd realistically keep on a weeknight rather than an ideal one, so the watch is measuring your life instead of scolding you about a life you don't have. And while we're on measurements, here's a small thing that changes how accurate all of this is. Band tightness. Too loose and the sensor loses contact and guesses. Too tight and you restrict blood flow, which distorts the reading in the other direction. Snug enough that it doesn't slide when you turn your wrist, loose enough that you forget it's there. Wear it a notch tighter for workouts and sleep than you would sitting at a desk. That's the whole health side covered properly now. Blood pressure, ECG, rhythm monitoring, body composition, and the daily scores. Which leaves the 2 things I told you about incorrectly last time, and one of them is quietly costing you battery every single day. My mistakes, and I'd rather say this plainly than let it sit there. In part 1, I described Gemini on the watch as though you just raise your wrist and start talking. That's the experience, but I left out the part that matters. Raise to talk is turned off by default. You have to go and enable it. And there's a trade-off attached, because leaving it on means the watch is listening for that gesture, and that costs you battery over a day. So the honest version is this: if you use voice control constantly, turn it on and accept the hit. If you use it twice a week, leave it off and open the assistant manually, and you'll get noticeably more runtime out of the same watch. That's a real choice, and I should have given it to you the first time. Second correction, I told you the Overnight Vitals feature needs a few nights to learn your baseline. The actual number is 7 nights of data before it starts producing meaningful comparisons. That's a week of consistent overnight wear, which is a bigger commitment than I made it sound, and if you've been wearing it on and off wondering why your Vitals card looks empty, that's why. Now, 2 small things I never mentioned at all, and they're both quick wins. Your watch runs the Play Store directly on your wrist, so you can install apps on the watch itself without touching your phone. Most people never open it and just live with what came preloaded, worth 10 minutes of browsing. And there's a portrait watch face that builds a custom face out of a photo from your gallery, cutting the subject out and layering the time around it. It's a small thing that makes the watch feel like yours rather than like a demo unit in a store. So let's wrap this up with a short list of what to actually do today. Install Samsung Health Monitor on your phone and your watch. Get an upper arm cuff and calibrate, then set a repeating 28-day reminder so it never silently expires. Switch on ECG and irregular rhythm notifications and leave them running. Take a body composition reading in the morning and start a baseline. Decide whether Raise to Talk is worth the battery for how you actually use it. One last practical thing on all of this, and it applies to every feature we've covered. Everything in this video depends on the watch actually being on your wrist, charged, and worn consistently. That sounds obvious, but it's the single biggest reason people get poor value out of an expensive watch. Pick a fixed charging window that fits your routine. In the shower, at your desk, while you cook dinner, and stick to it. Because a watch charged at a predictable time is a watch that's on you the rest of the time. All the calibration in the world doesn't help a watch sitting in a drawer. 2 things I'd flag as still moving, since I'd rather tell you than have you find out later. Feature availability by country shifts as regulatory approvals come through. So if something's missing where you are, check again in a few months rather than assuming your watch can't do it. And Samsung adds to Samsung Health regularly, so a metric that doesn't exist on your phone today may arrive in an update. If you spotted something else I've missed, put it in the comments and I'll do a part 3 rather than pretend the list is finished. That's how this one happened in the first place. A watch this capable deserves an owner who knows what's in it, and now you do. That's part 2 of the Watch 9 setup, including the corrections. Samsung Health Monitor is a separate download that unlocks blood pressure, ECG, and atrial fibrillation alerts. Blood pressure needs an upper arm cuff, 3 calibration readings inside 30 minutes, and a fresh calibration every 28 days or it stops working. ECG needs clean skin, a finger held on the home button, and a steady arm. Body composition wants a consistent morning routine. And Raise to Talk costs battery, so enable it only if you'll use it. Which of these were you missing? Tell me below. If this was useful, a like helps more than you'd think, and subscribe if you want part 3 when you find the next gap. Catch you in the next one. Peace.